Let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant at Arms will please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President,
All right, we will move to have the invocation from earlier today substitute for the afternoon session's invocation. Has everyone recorded their presence? All right. If so, the clerk will take the call. Oh, yeah. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again in session. Before we jump into things, any announcements? Any announcements? No, everyone's working hard, everyone's tired. Brains are fried. Nope. Oh, yes. Oh, Chair recognizes the senator from Charles County.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Could I have a point of personal privilege, sir?
Senator may proceed.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, for the first time this session, I missed this morning's session because of something I did 6 months ago, which landed me in Charles County Court today.
Uh-oh. Lead foot.
So 6 months ago, end of summer, I was shopping at a shopping center in Waldorf, and I heard crying coming from a car, and it was a baby left alone in a car. So we were able to go out and let the baby out and call 911. Now the child is okay, checked out, but because of what we had to do, law enforcement were involved. We called 911, and everyone had to come. And so fast forward, this case was postponed. The parent got in trouble, and so the case was finally adjudicated today. And I'm happy to say, because of the laws that I worked with the state's attorney and really compassionate about this parent. And so the parent was given 6 months of parenting classes instead of any other record, and the charges will be dropped, whatever. I don't know the exact terms, but I'm just happy that the child is okay, and the parent will be a better parent, because parents are under so much stress these days, and I think the parent just forgot that child was in the car and just went off really quick. So I'm just really happy that we were able to get there in time for the child to be okay. So thank you, Mr. President, colleagues, for your time.
Thank you, Senator. And I retract the lead foot. I thought it was a speeding ticket that you were talking about for a second there. But no, that was a much better story, and appreciate that reflection. Thank you, Senator. It's a nice outcome here. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 6.
Thank you. I don't have a great story like that, but I have a good thing to talk about, Mr. President. I wasn't here this morning also, but had a great opportunity to represent the Senate at Trade Point Atlantic today. And they are opening a manufacturing business to hire 2,000 people. They're going to be doing gloves and helping out a lot of hospitals, and starting in the state, PPE, so we don't have to depend on Russia or China or anybody else. We can be independent in making PPE in our country. And it just started at Trade Point, and it's because of this Senate and the House that we passed a good bill to help for 10 years any company who will be a part of Trade Point to be tax exempt for building materials. And we have a good chair that sponsored this, and I want to thank him for that. But we had everybody here vote for that bill. It's a good bill, and we need to extend that sunset next year to continue to bring good people and good businesses. Right now, we have, by the time that we hire these 2,000, we'll have 12,000 people working at Trade Point Atlantic, the old Bethlehem Steel. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you, Senator. It's a pretty remarkable success story. I remember going there, and it really, truly felt like Zombieland. It was just everything. It was unreal, and now it is a bustling metropolis again. It's pretty neat. Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County.
Also not probably as cool as the last two speakers, but I just wanted to say how cool it was to have the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra with us, and want to congratulate you, Mr. President, on your new career as an orchestra conductor. And it was a thrill. A bunch of us took our hand at it. So the senators from District 40, 37, 16, and I, and maybe I missed a couple of others, but one of the most terrifying things I've ever done was them all watching, you know, the every move of my hand to try to conduct an orchestra. But it was very exciting, and they are a true attribute and a jewel in the crown of Baltimore and in Montgomery County at Strathmore Hall. So thank you for bringing them.
Thank you, Senator. They were really wonderful. They really were great. Just remarkable talent, remarkable talent. All right. And we have a nice event tomorrow, too. For St. Patrick's Day, we'll have a little musical interlude to kick us off. All right, any other orders of business before we jump back in today? We'll waive the reading of the journal from the prior legislative session from earlier today. We have a message from the House of Delegates. This is Calendar 13. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 29, Delegate Carr, Vehicle Laws, Penalties for Failure to Pay Video Toll and Electronic Tolling Performance Audit. This is an emergency bill.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to their appropriate standing committees. We've got another message. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 882, Chair, Environment and Transportation Committee, Natural Resources, Pocomoke River Wildland Alteration of Boundaries,
Majority
EHE.
Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to their appropriate standing committees. We've got a long night tonight. We'll see, but we got a lot of calendars to be determined. So let's go to layover bill number 26. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 207, Chair, Finance Committee, Insurance Carriers, Cybersecurity Standards. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question before the body is on the 9 committee amendments. Are there discussion on the amendments? No? Oh, do we want to special order the bill until?
What's the nature of the amendment? Maybe I'd ask you that.
Oh, well, hold on. Actually, we have to adopt the amendment. There is an amendment. Is that correct? Okay. So let's do this. Let's do the 9 committee amendments. Any discussion on the amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 9 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amended favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Chair now recognizes the senator from District 9 has an amendment. If we could collect the senator's amendment. Do we want to special order this maybe until?
Can we let the sponsor of the amendment maybe describe the amendment? It may not be that controversial.
Okay, great. All right. Do we have? Okay. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, I asked for the bill to be special ordered so I could talk to the commissioner. It was the first time I had a wonderful conversation with her, and really impressed. You know, it's great to see strong women in positions that know something about cybersecurity. So I talked to Commissioner Boreen, and she answered all of my questions on the bill. It's a very well-written bill. And during the process, I learned that this is model legislation that is put forward by the National Association of the Insurance Commissioners, of which she is the chair of the H Committee, which is the Cybersecurity Committee. So we had a great conversation. The purpose of this amendment is to add co-sponsor and to add the Maryland Insurance Commissioner to an executive branch council related to cybersecurity. And she is good with the amendment. The commissioner is.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's check with the floor leader.
That is a very controversial amendment. I think we can live with that.
All right, there are no objections to the amendment. Are there any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 207 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill. Oh, there is no next bill on that calendar. So let's go to number 27.
Senate Bill 475, Senator Bidle, Maryland Transit Administration Police, Collective Bargaining Supervisors and Sergeants. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right, question before the body is on the committee amendment. Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th District. as an amendment. All right, Senator from Baltimore County? No? On the list? Okay. All right, on the amendment, yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 34.
I just have a question for the floor leader, if I could, on this one. Just trying to understand this bill.
Floor leader. Who do we have as a floor? All right. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. There's a pension provision already in the pensions article, and now we're basically adding a pension provision in the transportation article. Are these different? Why are we?
Actually, if you wait for the amendment, I think you'll find that that might not apply.
Okay, I'll take a look at
Thank
the
you.
amendment. Thank you.
All right, let's take up the committee amendment in that case. Any objections to the committee amendment? All in favor say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, the one committee amendment's adopted. On the favorable committee report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator from the 29th District has an amendment. If we could collect that amendment and give us just a moment to get it loaded. Seems dark in here. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. This amendment simply clarifies to ensure that this only applies to the supervisors and sergeants in the Maryland Transit Administration Police Department, as it was originally intended, does not include all the civilian supervisors for the entire MDOT and MTA. I request the body to adopt this amendment.
All right, let's see. Senators move the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll accept it as a favorable amendment.
All right, deemed favorable. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, all in favor say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 475 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we've got laid over calendar number 28. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 362, Senator Pinsky, Primary and Secondary Education, Virtual Schools Revision. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, before the body are the four committee amendments. Do we have discussion on the amendments? Chair recognizes the Senator from the 36th District on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if the floor leader could yield for questions on the amendments.
It appears so. Senator may proceed.
Happily.
Thank you. That folder coming in was just my notes here, so just in the nick of time here. The questions I had before were about Section 3, the uncodified Section 3 of the bill, which was an amendment. And I was wondering if you can just walk us through exactly what that is and what it is intended to do.
Senator, the bill itself, excuse me, the bill itself sets a number of policies to be followed and utilized by virtual schools post-pandemic as they get established. For example, employees of the school have to be employees of the county in which they're serving the young people. The class size of the program has to be reflective of the class size in a bricks and mortar school. It's got to provide wraparound services in sports. It has to have an interactive social and emotional wellness program. And there are a number of things, and one of the other criteria is prohibition of a for-profit institution. Now, it was brought to our attention there is one on the Eastern Shore. There are also some that are not for-profit. I know your own county runs one or two virtual schools, I believe. I spoke with the executive director of that one school, and he said, you know, I'm not sure, it doesn't look like we're going to conform with all the things that you do. Another criteria in the bill is
the synchronous learning. A significant portion of the instruction had to be synchronous learning. He called me, and I spoke to him once or twice. He said, I don't think we're going to fall under all the requirements of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we just got started, hate for you to close this down.
Right.
I said, I don't want to do that. So I put in language to the committee, recommending language to the committee to allow them an additional 2 years so they can transition to fulfill the other criteria of the bill. So this is a long answer to your question. The Section 3 codified in the bill is to address that language, which essentially says if you started before that time, before the date it was established,
Right.
they may continue to operate as a virtual school through the 23-24 school year. And then it says the state Department of Education or the state superintendent may revoke approval of a virtual school even before then if they fall in the bottom 10% of comparable schools. So that's what the bill does.
Okay, so
That's
that's
the uncodified section.
Yeah, okay, so that's the part I'm concerned about. So the uncodified language allows, and I want to be specific. I mean, you had mentioned in yesterday's conversation about this, Frederick County had virtual schools and Howard County had
And Anne
virtual.
Arundel County has a terrific one.
Okay,
So Cecil County, I believe, has an elementary one. So there are a number of them around the state.
Right, okay. So this,
And
does this
part,
le-
if I can, Senator, part of how we came to this bill was using what is happening at those virtual schools. For example, somebody from Frederick County talked about the Frederick County School. So we tried to incorporate a lot of what they're doing and how they're trying to proceed into this bill.
So could Section 3 prohibit any of those up and operating virtual schools to be shut down?
If they don't fulfill the criteria, the class size criteria, the employment of the staff, having significant synchronous learning, absolutely.
Okay, so that becomes kind of the question. So, one, these were established under, I guess it looks like Section 4-109, approved under 71402. And 71402 is where the new language comes in that an organization cannot be a for-profit entity, right?
I believe that's right.
Okay, so I'm just, again, wondering if any of...
Senator, if I could, prior to this bill, there was a bare bones procedure. You had to work with the state superintendent, state department, but it was very bare bones.
Okay.
And so they approved them, but didn't have responsibilities, criteria, et cetera, and that's part of the reason this bill's before you.
Right, but part of it also was, prior to this legislation, there was not a requirement that you couldn't be a for-profit entity, right?
As I said, there was bare bones, and I think it was the previous superintendent who approved this or promoted it
Correct.
with this private corporation.
Right. So that's all true. And so what I'm trying to see is if this language is specifically targeted to ensuring that the Eastern Shore of Maryland Education Consortium cannot further operate. And as long as they're a for-profit, you're saying they cannot continue to operate?
Well, there are a number of things that's out of compliance.
Can we be specific? Because again, there's a number of things that have to do, again, with the less than 10%, and I understand that. But I want to make sure that if they continue as a for-profit entity, are they no longer able to operate?
Well, I think separating that from their falling short on their synchronous learning. In other words, they only require 20% synchronous learning. That means 80% of the student day is not dealt with the teacher. It's on their own doing work. It also allows someone who might have this as a second job in Minneapolis to be the teacher. So
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
saying they're
all
related,
of-
Senator.
All of those can be addressed, and that's what I'm saying. And all of those can be addressed, and it's very clear if you fall under the 10%, you can no longer operate. I'm asking one specific question. If they remain a for-profit entity, does this kick them out?
Right. The policy of the state has been in your county and my county and 24 counties that you have public schools. This legislature 17 or 18 years ago passed a charter school bill that said charter schools could not be run and owned by for-profits because there was not a great track record of the performance and they're having less caring for the children under their purview. And so that has been the policy. This is the one for-profit institution when there are many other virtual schools that are run by school systems or by nonprofits. So it basically puts us in the same posture as we took with charter schools.
Mr. Chairman, the blueprint for Maryland's future encourages innovative programs in education, right? Do you agree? Okay.
Right, within the purviews and the framework of the blueprint.
Right, but again, this consortium was approved under the previous superintendent.
Yes,
and
it was.
And it's now operating. And now we're coming back and saying, yeah, we don't like the fact that it's a for-profit. Because everything else can be addressed. If it is underperforming, it can be kicked out via this language. But specifically with the for-profit language in it, it cannot operate.
Senator, I would disagree to some extent.
Okay.
And that is, they are performing under this model, having 20% synchronous learning. 20%, that means 80% of the time they are using fewer teachers, which may be the reason they are able to make a profit from this. They are not using teachers from Dorchester County or Wacomico County. They can have any teacher who has been certified in Maryland.
Right.
But they can be in Minneapolis and working 3 hours a week on that class, and it could be a second job. The question is, you asked me a question, I've got the floor. The question is, the model of this for-profit company shows no commitment to the success of these children just to continue to receive the $6,900 or their per pupil expenditure.
Not accurate.
And I think these are related because making a profit without having 80% synchronous or using staff members from the school systems and paying them the same wages, hours, and working conditions are missed here. And that's why it's part and parcel that there are other things they can't fulfill, and because at the end of the day, not only are they performing horribly, and there are many people at the State Department who'd like to close them down yesterday, it's not a model we want to have replicated, because once this company comes in, you can be sure there are going to be more wanting to come in to do the same thing. And at the end of the day, if those kids fail, they come back to the traditional schools, and we have to make up for all that lost time and lost learning.
Well, I won't get into where we are with lost time and lost learning right now, but those results are very blatant. But I do want to say that I don't know where the information that you're getting comes from, but this says that
State Department.
Well, this says that the student achievement is 75% pass rate. Okay.
Well,
What I would also ask is, does this legislation now require that you have to be 80% synchronous?
It says a significant portion, and we are leaving the final number up to the State Department.
So how do we know that the final number of the consortium doesn't reach
A
that number?
significant is over 50%. They're at 20%, Senator. 20%. They are lower than anything. And the superintendent did a report to the State Board of Education on January 25th. And what he found is that more synchronous instructional time for virtual students is associated with a lower course failure rate in middle schools. He also said that the number of synchronous hours for middle and high school students in systems with 100% of the virtual teachers provided by a vendor, that's the organization Eastern Shore, is significantly lower than systems with no vendor-provided teachers. The average hours in that school of synchronous is 7.4 hours. The other virtual schools around the state, 27.7 hours. When it comes to high school, hold on to your seats. The average time is 4.7 hours at this school, and it's 27.4 hours in other virtual high schools. And one more fact I think might be relevant to this. The course failure rate, ladies and gentlemen, the course failure rate, and this is from the PowerPoint that the state superintendent gave to the State Board of Education. The course failure rate for systems with 100% of the virtual teachers provided by a vendor, which is the case, and we don't know where they live.
100%? What? I want to make sure.
100%. Course failure rate for systems with 100% of the virtual teachers provided by a vendor. That is what this company on the Eastern Shore does. Was significantly higher than system with no vendor provided teachers like Anne Arundel County. The course failure rate for other schools other than the one on the Eastern Shore was 11%. The course failure rate for this situation in English was 32%, almost 3 times more. In math, it was 29% in that school, with 16% elsewhere across the state. In social studies, in other virtual schools of the same level, I think it was middle school, it was 26% in this school.
It sounds like some of the numbers that we're hearing from our public schools right now as well too, right?
No.
No?
This is that virtual school compared to the one in Frederick County and Howard County and Anne Arundel County, who are basically replicating what is being done in the traditional schools, which is what this bill tries to do, and they are 2 to 3 times worse in their performance.
I thought you were talking about proficiencies.
I'm talking about the course failure rate.
Because the public school system proficiencies are what?
This bill is dealing with virtual schools.
I'm just saying, well, we're trying to...
I can't tell you, I don't know.
Well, I've seen some numbers that they're in the 16%, the 25%.
All I can tell you is the other virtual schools around the state that are essentially mirroring what's in this bill have a better performance rate. Anne Arundel County was brought to my attention, and this was reported at the state board meeting. They have virtual class size and schedules, meaning synchronous, that mirror face-to-face classes. They have rules like you have to attend your synchronous classes with a camera on. They also hire people from the jurisdiction, and their results are about the same for virtual of all students. So when it's done right, you've got some successful virtual schools. This is not.
And that's great, and that's great. And everything that you're just talking about, this consortium could do. They could understand if those figures are all accurate, they could understand that and say, okay, if that's what it takes to operate, we can do that. Except for the one thing that you have in the bill here, that they can't be a for-profit. Is that right?
Yes, it is a policy
right.
question. If you want to privatize education in our state, you should clearly.
All right. Let's, senators, let's direct the comments to the chair. This is a Senate debate, not a conversation in the hallway. So let's.
I think that's the crust of where this is going. That because this is a for-profit entity, the committee does not want to see this move forward. Okay, wants this to stop. Let me talk about a few of the things you've mentioned, and I appreciate you talking about all the different schools that have this. Anne Arundel County, very large school system. Howard County, large school system. Frederick County, large school system. Are you saying you don't think it makes sense for a lot of small counties to get together? The Frederick County virtual school program has over 1,300 kids in it. One county. This consortium, 365 from 7 different counties. Isn't this a better way to help some students that just may not be able to learn in a classroom setting have another option?
Senator, this bill does not prohibit a collaborative effort by multiple counties to provide a school system, to provide an instructional program. It doesn't do that. There are many places it says it can be a collaborative beyond that county's borders. It's not about the collectivization. The question is, who is going to host that? And for 2 years, and every school on the Eastern Shore hosted virtual learning. It's not like the schools can't host virtual learning. They can welcome students from Dorchester, Wacomico, Talbot, etc., and allow that to happen. This bill does not prohibit that, Senator. I think they should have the right, but they should also ensure that it's about the students and not about the business model.
I don't think that there's anything that's been stated here that thinks that this is about the business model. All right, I'm going to just finish because you've mentioned Dr. Chowdhury a number of times on what his comments were. Where was that for a second? You got that letter? It's right here. Here it is. This was the letter the members of EHE are copied on it, as well as the Senate President. He says, pre-existing virtual programs, including those run by for-profit providers, should be allowed to continue to operate so long as after a time-bound startup period, they are providing their students with a high-quality education. Now, that's just what you and I have been debating about, right? As long as they meet the criteria that this bill suggests, they should be able to operate. But because there is language in here that is specifically related to for-profit, that won't allow this consortium to operate, even though the superintendent feels that it should.
Well, first of all, Senator,
Current superintendent.
I understand. When they testified and they submitted written testimony, it was support for this bill with some amendments. The amendments did not include removing the prohibition on for-profits, okay? They had amendments that we actually adopted subsequent in committee. The bill was very clear from the very beginning. They actually sat through an informal summer work group, and when they submitted their testimony, they didn't say word boo about that as a miscalculation and a wrong policy.
All right, I'll give you more boo. The rest of this letter says, all virtual schools should be held accountable for producing positive student outcomes, whether those schools are run by a public or for-profit operator, whether they originated before the bill becomes law or starts next year. So it's hard to believe that he's written in two different sentences here that he believes that for-profit operators should be able to continue to operate, and then when it comes time to amendments, that was never brought up, never questioned by the committee. How come they hadn't thought about?
I don't know the date of that letter. I can only tell you when he submitted testimony, we looked at that testimony, and he had no problem with there being a prohibition. So I don't know if that happened after we acted on the bill or he got a phone call from someone. I don't know.
But, so, Senator, hold on, just give us a moment. Senator from District 21, what purpose is the...
Thank you. I wanted to ask a question of the gentleman from the Upper Shore.
I don't know if that be in order at the moment, but it will be in just a moment.
Whenever it's appropriate.
Just a quick note. This is the Senate, so we certainly take as probative information from organizations, individuals, agencies, secretaries, but at the end of the day, it's this body, these 47 people, that make the decision on the policy. So. For all purposes.
And Senator, just one final point.
Yes.
When I spoke with the state superintendent, he actually suggested language that said, shall close schools. And I thought that was too harsh, and I suggested to the committee that it be may close schools. So he's taken a very strong stand and has been...
That was in reference to the performance of the school. So when you're talking about Section 3 of the bill, that was specifically related to item 2, which was the performance. It wasn't about the profit, whether it was a for-profit or not for profit. What am I waiting for?
The letter came after we voted for the bill.
Okay, well, it came after we voted, and it came before we're addressing this on the second reader. Okay. It's surprising that something like that was not asked about. It just seems that this was on a runway to get a consortium out that happened to be a for-profit, even though it serves the needs of 7 different counties, And maybe you might be right about something. Maybe it is easier to operate with a vendor that has an established system that can do this, rather than asking each of 7 different counties to try to create something that they could do. This would seem like a much better idea.
All right, Senators, I believe, was there a question there? The chair didn't hear a question. Let's, it sounds like it was a comment on the amendments. We have a number of individual senators who want to speak. I think we know the issue. The senator from the 36th district has the floor. Are there further questions for the floor leader or on the amendments themselves?
Not right now, thank you.
All right, chair recognizes the senator from the 21st district. All right, chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City on the amendments.
Would the floor leader yield? I just have a question to clarify. If a floor leader could yield for a question.
Will the floor leader yield for a question?
There's so some of the questions, it sounds like they were talking about saying that the Eastern Shore, the consortium is a nonprofit, and that the consortium wouldn't be able to operate. Is the bill, are you referencing the consortium, or are you referencing the vendor that they use? The consortium can operate, is that correct?
Yes.
It's not a the consortium is not a for-profit entity.
Counties can get together and either have the high school or elementary school in Dorchester or Wacomico host it and allow students from another jurisdiction, or they could hire a nonprofit to do it, as many charter schools in Baltimore and Prince George's have done.
Yeah.
So it does not preclude a group of counties coming together to serve their children.
Yeah, so Mr. President, I just wanted to clarify that, because the word that was being used as if that the legislation was directed towards these 7 counties that are coming together. This is not a for-profit entity. They have the ability to hire vendors. They can continue to operate. So I just want to make it very clear that this does not require, this is already a nonprofit entity. So I just wanted to, you're using consortium, and that's just not the appropriate word. So I just wanted to get that.
All right, we have a lot of interest on this. Just a reminder, since we've got a lot of bills backed up behind this, so just a lot of work that's sitting and waiting. So chair recognizes the senator from the 34th district.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a quick question for the floor leader, Chairman, if I could. Mr. Chairman, you gave some really compelling testimony on these failure rates and contrasting between the consortium failure rates and the other virtuals. Are those failures? Are those grades that are given by the vendor, or is there some neutral? Does the school give those grades? Who says pass or fail? I'm just trying to understand that.
The teachers.
The teachers. So those would be the consortium's teachers, or not? Maybe I'm not understanding.
Yes. I mean, whoever is a teacher of record.
Right. So it would be the contract, in this case, the contractor's teachers, right?
Right. Those teachers who we don't know where they're from.
Gotcha.
I think the implication, at least what I heard from the state, is that with the study, and the superintendent reported this to the State Board of Education,
Right.
is some of the contributing factors is that there's a lot of asynchronous time. There's a correlation between students who are not getting much real face direct time,
Right.
and that's the business model that this company's using. At least 20% synchronous. They are getting lower grades, more failures.
So, that's one. I agree. That's one conclusion to be drawn. I mean, the other might also draw a conclusion that the consortium simply grades tougher than the other virtuals, right? I mean, if the consortium is an independent sort of entity here, and they just simply grade in a certain manner that's not as forgiving versus the others. Isn't that possible? That explains that?
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, on the amendments, are there any further discussion on the amendments, on the committee amendments? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it. The 4 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or the title? Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th district. Senator has an amendment.
Thank you very much. After all of that discussion, I do have an amendment. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. I do know a little bit about this program because I've...
Oh, Senator, just give us one moment. Let's make sure we get it up on the, make sure we get
I'm
the right
sorry,
one.
let
No
me
worries.
give you the
Oh, you're
number.
okay. The Senator's okay. Let's see if this loads it up.
363424.
All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard a lot of discussion about our program on the Eastern Shore, and I have to tell you, our superintendents were very excited, and they worked pre-pandemic. They were working on this, and then through the pandemic, they worked to develop this program. We've had a severe shortage of teachers on the shore. We have had a real exodus on a number of folks through the pandemic. And we've also had a number of, some exodus with our students. So this program was a way to reach a lot of students who would actually be dropped out of school. The group worked very closely with the state superintendent. 2 years before, they did a lot of research. From what we've heard today, I guess it wasn't very good research, but they thought it was very good research to be able to select a vendor to be able to provide these services. They had a rough start. I think they started up in the fall maybe of last year. And they were off to a rocky start in the first semester because they did have grades weren't real good as they were getting the program going. But at the end of the first semester, and the end of the quarter, they wound up having a 75% pass rate. I say all of this because I believe if a program's been up and running for not even a full year yet, we need to give them an opportunity to go ahead and continue with the contract and the agreement they've started. And I talked with the superintendent, state superintendent, and he did say that they had the authority to shut programs down who were not performing well in the previous year. I don't have a problem with that, but they suggested that we don't have a time limit. So essentially what this amendment would do is on page 6, at the end of that bill, just strike through the language that says through the 2023-24 school year. Let this program operate, and if it is not doing well, it will be shut down. So I would move the amendment, Mr. President.
All right, the Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the amendment.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this amendment excludes them from everything in this bill. Everything in the bill. For example, having a significant portion of their learning be synchronous. They don't have to abide by that. Having the teachers be employees of the counties that are servicing these kids, who might have an interest in those kids, who might be teaching them the following year if they return to a bricks and mortar school. The class size, it won't be touched because they are exempt from that. They are exempt from all of the guardrails. All of the guardrails that are now being used by some of the successful ones in the state. And the issue of time has come up. Give them time. Ladies and gentlemen, for 2 years, all of our schools were doing virtual work. This isn't a matter of time. By the second year, every school's been doing virtual. They learned how to do it. They had problems in year 1. We also know that a lot of virtual schools didn't get great results, but they're good for some students. So this isn't an issue about giving them time. It's the model, and this exempts them from every guardrail. That's what it does. It's as if we went back to the charter school and took 2 charter schools and say, you don't have to follow these rules. If you fail and the kids get hurt, so be it. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, those children who don't succeed, who fail multiple classes, come back to our other schools. So we created this bill talking to principals, superintendents, and in fact, the deputy of the state superintendent participated in 3 or 4 or 5 meetings this summer in anticipation of this bill. The whole idea was to have guardrails to protect our children. You know, it shouldn't be about the business model, it should be about our children, and that's what this bill does. So I would urge you to resist this amendment and vote red.
All right, on the amendment, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th district on the amendment.
Mr. President, I'm just a question for the floor leader. I don't understand how this would exempt a consortium from the remaining guardrails that are in here, or any other virtual school, right? Because this section deals with virtual schools that have already been approved and created. And then there's additional language about the consortium, but this entire section relates to every virtual school. So how would it say that just by eliminating the date, that only the consortium would not be bound by the?
It would affect any schools that are affected. It essentially says, shall continue to operate as a virtual school, period. So basically, it tells them they have to keep operating, even if they're failing. I mean, the language of the bill says they shall continue to operate. That's what the amendment says. I mean, if you look at the, that's what the amendment
Says the consortium may continue to operate as a virtual school.
The language says shall continue to operate.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th district.
Thank you very much. My reprint of the bill says may continue to operate as a virtual school. And the reason I took the timeline out is because after discussion with Dr. Chowdhury's staff on this, they said they did not have a problem. They would recommend, in fact, he recommended to me that we take the date out completely because there was stronger language in the next section if you read it. And it says the State Department of Education, and yes, we did recommend initially shall, but that was changed in the committee to may, revoke the approval of a virtual school authorized to continue operations under paragraph 1 of this subsection if during the previous school year the virtual school performs at the bottom 10% of schools as determined by the metrics of the state accountability system. In all the conversations I've had with Dr. Chowdhury's team, he said he doesn't have a problem with the for-profits. But there have to be guardrails in place. There have to be metrics in place. There have to be supports in place with this program. And that's why I have just said to eliminate that time, because I believe the rest of the bill does apply to those schools, and they will be shut down if they're not performing according to the standards that are outlined here in this bill. Thank you. I would move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th district on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're making a case here for fundamental fairness. And we want to give you the background so you do have all the facts before you cast the vote. And we didn't have all of these facts before the vote was cast in committee. I want to remind the members that this is a consortium made up of 9 public school systems on the Maryland's Eastern Shore. The background of this is back in the spring of 2020 to address student and family needs with the recommendation, advice, and consent of the state superintendent of schools. The Eastern Shore of Maryland Consortium began to develop a blended virtual program, multi-district, 7 of the 9 counties participating. They went and they secured the services of a program coordinator, a teacher who is on loan from the Wicomico County Public Schools system. They created an advisor committee with representatives from each shore school system. We've heard about some of the elements of the program, but I want to underscore there is synchronous instruction live with Maryland certified teachers in all regular and honors core and elective courses. There is an Eastern Shore of Maryland Consortium virtual coordinator, again, who's on loan from the Wycomico County Public Schools. There is a liaison from each participating school system on the shore. There are student success coordinators. There is live tutoring Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We wanted to update you with the numbers. A 75% pass rate at the end of semester 1. That's an increase of almost 9% from the end of quarter 1. And students who are not being successful are provided additional support by the local schools and or returning to in-person learning, but they're getting support from the local schools. For the clarification from the state superintendent that we did not have before the committee vote, the state superintendent writes, it must be acknowledged that for-profit education providers across the country have an abject record of serving students well in many cases. It goes on to say, and he says 3 times, he writes this 3 times in his clarification, pre-existing virtual programs, including those run by for-profit providers, should be allowed to continue to operate so long as, after a time-bound startup period, they are providing their students a high-quality education. He goes on to say, all virtual schools should be held accountable for producing positive student outcomes, whether those schools are run by a public or for a for-profit operator, whether they originated before the bill becomes law or the start of next year. And finally, he goes on to say, so long as a virtual program that originated before the state passed this law is performing above that line, it should be able to continue. It should be able to continue, should. All we're asking for right now is to let them go ahead and continue to operate. If they don't perform, then the state superintendent can shut them down, so shut them down. But what we're saying is allow them to continue to operate. And so I ask you to allow them to continue to operate, to give this a chance, to let them work in good faith. So I ask for your vote for this amendment.
All right, on the amendment, any further, Chair recognizes the minority leader on the amendment.
Yeah, I'm just trying to match the amendment with it. And I heard discussions about shall and may, and I'm looking at amendments, page 6, and it says, subject to paragraph 2, and it goes on and says they may operate until 2023, 2024. And subject to paragraph 2 says the State Department may revoke if they don't perform. So all they're saying is get rid of that date. They still can revoke them based on their performance. And we're talking about Eastern Shore here, but what this bill is really doing is making a general policy that you shouldn't have for-profit entities. And I think what we should be focusing on is student performance. And that should be what we're focusing on, not necessarily the method, because we can look at our current system and see failures throughout our educational system. And we just passed a bill called Kerwin to address those deficiencies because we saw deficiencies. And so again, I think we should be focusing on how is the student performing, and as long as we have the guardrails in place to make sure they're performing, I don't think we should limit our options.
All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? No. Chair is in doubt. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 27 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or title? Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th district has an amendment.
Thank you very much. I will try again. I have an amendment. I have another one. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you have problems with taking the time frame out as suggested by the superintendent, I am offering another one, and this gives it another year. So this would extend it and substitute 2023, 2024 to 25, 26. I just really believe that if there's been a contract in place, if we have the guardrails in place, that we need to let the local jurisdictions honor the contract and give at least 2 to 3 years to see how this program plays out. They will stop it if those students are not performing. The other thing I might say is that I believe in enabling our locals who are well educated, who know the students in our area, to provide the best services and the best education as possible. And I think it would only be local courtesy to be able to extend this program, because I've heard from the folks in that program that they really do not want to shut the program down. And many of you who've worked in any kind of behavior change know that you don't stop something before you have an adequate time to really evaluate its effectiveness. And I believe by shutting this program down now, you do not have a good barometer on effectiveness. And so I would move the amendment. Thank you.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Senator, as I mentioned, I spoke with the executive director of the program a couple of weeks ago, and he raised concerns about, closing it this June, and I said, so, what do we do? He said, give me another year or two. So we did that, even though it's got the bad track record. But ladies and gentlemen, I think more to the point is that one of the guardrails that they want to be exempt from is that the department and a county board shall adopt policies for the mandatory return to in-person instruction for students enrolled in a virtual school, including students who are failing academically after receiving the appropriate supports. That was suggested by the State Department of Education. They want to have a policy in place to mandatorily move them if a student isn't being successful. If I'm the company, which is now, it was bought up from the company in Seattle to a holding company that's in Minneapolis, are they going to be in a hurry to have those students removed from that school? I don't think so. I think adding 2 years is unfortunately putting more of our students in jeopardy, and then at the end of the day, we're going to have to help them, so I'd urge a red vote.
Thank
All
you.
right, on the amendment, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the maker of the amendment.
Thank you very much. I just want to report when we got this student achievement update, because I called back to the consortium and said, I need to know the performance. I need to know what's been happening and what student success is. Students who are not being successful are provided additional face-to-face support locally, and or if they're not able to do that, they are returned to in-person learning. What hasn't been talked about is that all of these students have access to individuals within the schools, because they're operating from the schools, and there are other instructors, teachers available to them as well. So it has been closely monitored, and I do not believe that the folks that I know of who are involved in this program that would let some of the things happening that we heard from the senator from Montgomery County. I would move the amendment, give them 1 more year. I mean, and let's see how this program goes. Thank you.
All right, question is on the amendment. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay? No. Amendment fails. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 362 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right.
Mr. President, on a separate and lighter note,
Senator.
I would like to suspend the rules to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 492 passed for purpose of a sponsor amendment.
All right, 492, this is the one we have to bring back up. All right, the senator has moved to reconsider the vote by which 492 has been moved to third reader. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? All in favor say aye, opposed nay. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Senate Bill 492 is now back on second reader. Open to amendment. Senator has an amendment. Senator from the 27th District.
Yes, Mr. President, I have a very simple amendment. I spoke to the floor leader and the chair. This is a simple amendment. I guess I'll wait, but
Just give us a half second to get it loaded up, make sure we check our work.
takes.
All right, Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a very simple amendment. It's a co-sponsor amendment in my district. Part of my district has the Chesapeake Bay, Patuxent River, and we have the historic Eagle Harbor, which has been suffering from discharge challenges, and I appreciate the chair for allowing this amendment.
Senator moves the amendment, sponsor amendment. Any objection to the senator's motion? Objection to the senator's amendment. Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 492 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. While we were doing some adjustments, we have another one that, so Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to have 2 readings in one day.
All right, the senator has moved to suspend the rules for 2 readings in one day. For a particular bill, not for the entire session.
That would absolutely be correct, yes.
Yeah, right.
Although I'd love to go home, but, you know.
On which bill, Senator?
Senate Bill 387.
On Senate Bill 387, the senator has moved to suspend the rules. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? If there are no objections, the motion carries, which means Senate Bill 387 is now in front of the body on third reading for final passage. Can we ring the bells quickly? All right, Senate Bill 387 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from District 4.
Yeah, I just want to explain where we're at on the bill. If you've noticed, we amended the bill quite a deal in committee. We've been amending it quite a deal on the floor. And actually, I want to really thank the chairman and the members of the committee for working together on this. When the bill came to our committee, it was problematic. But the one thing, actually, there was a consensus. For the first time, we had some of the gun groups that came in and said, yeah, there is a problem that these people are buying these quote-unquote ghost guns, these cheap plastic little couple $100 bills that are quote-unquote for assemble, when they're basically already readily assembled. So a 16 or 17-year-old kid with a DeWalt drill can take one to the basement, as we saw happen tragically in Montgomery County, as we've seen happening in other places, and could turn it into a firearm. And so the question then at hand was, the bill as it came in, well, what do you do about people who are legitimately building these firearms? And there are a lot of people who have spent thousands of dollars. They are hobbyists. They've built rifles, and they have these firearms that they legally made. So the bill as it came in, quite frankly, it would have criminalized those people, and it had in there a 3-year penalty, which meant they would have been prohibited for the rest of their lives from possessing a firearm. So we worked through the committee, and we set up a process. First off, the ATF's going to deal with it, but also this bill that these little cheapo ones that come in, those are going to be gone. But the hobbyists, the people that are legitimately making these, we set up a system where they can go through the state police, they can register it, and they'll need a serial number. And I thought that was appropriate. And then that way, and we also we changed the criminal penalty where it required intent. So not only we have this new system set up, but the people, they have to knowingly violate it, and we lowered the penalty down to a 2-year, so that basically somebody who's a law-abiding citizen, they're doing the right things, they built one of these, we don't want to see them get caught up, we don't want to see them get in trouble, we don't want to see them lose their gun, we want to set up a system that works. So for those reasons, I am going to support this. I know that there are some of the groups that will still have heartburn over this and not like it, but quite frankly, myself and I know the senator from Southern Maryland here, we've been working on this. We've made a simple decision. There was a problem. We agreed to address it. And quite frankly, rather than just fly off the cliff with our flags flying, we try to come up with a common sense solution to deal with ghost guns, but also to deal with the people that currently have them. So for this reason, I'm going to support the legislation.
All right, thank you, Senator. On the, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll. Oh. Do it. Oh, Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th District. Apologies.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, Mr. President, thanks to the members of JPR, we can make a really good product when we all work together. And for that reason, I will be voting green on this. And the thing is all about education. Even though I went to a shooting event on Sunday in my home county, I had a lot of people turn and walk away from me because I voted for this in committee, right? But once I explained it to them and educated them about what was going on, they changed their views. For that reason, and for the work of the committee and this body, I'll be voting green. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. No further discussion. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 387, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Senator, just a quick administrative note. We're going to go to the layover counter next, but now that we don't have the pods anymore, the speak button I don't look at as quite as often. So if senators, if there is a moment that senators want to speak, please stand, please rise, and don't want to miss anybody. So if I see it down here, sometimes I catch it too late. So just a little accommodation. All right, layover calendar number 29. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 53, Senator Carter, Juvenile Law, Juvenile Interrogation Protection Act. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right. Senators, the question is on the 5 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had laid this bill over, I'm losing track. I think it was yesterday. And I just wondered if the floor leader, the bill sponsor, would rise for a couple questions.
Certainly.
Senator may proceed.
So I just wanted to be sure I understand where we're going on this bill. The goal of the bill is to make sure that young people that are under the age of 18, is it a parental notification? Is it also a requirement attorney be present? Can you speak to that?
Certainly. So the bill addresses persons under 18 that are children under our law, and it's multifaceted. The first aspect of the bill is that it requires parental notification when a child is taken into custody prior to a custodial interrogation. The second thing it does is require that there's a consultation with an attorney that the child has prior to a custodial interrogation. That meeting with the attorney can take place either physically present or it can be over the phone, and actually the Office of the Public Defender is set up to be able to handle those calls when they come in. So that's something that's been discussed.
They're already, if I can follow up, they already are set up to do this?
So they're already doing it in Baltimore, but they have worked out a system where they're going to be able to do it to accommodate the bill.
When you say they're already doing it, what this bill is requiring is already being done in the city of Baltimore?
The custodial interrogation, the notification to the to the attorney.
So the purpose of the bill is just to make it statewide?
No, absolutely not. So I think this is a program that was set up, nothing to do with the bill, but probably to do with the consent decree. But the reason I brought it up is to say that it's already something that is possible to do because it's being done. The reason it's necessary is because of due process and fairness. As you know, 56 or so years ago, the Supreme Court said that everyone taking into custody has a right to an attorney prior to a custodial interrogation. It's a critical stage of the criminal process. But in Maryland, we have not afforded that same due process right to children, and this bill would, in my opinion, do a common sense closing of that hole.
So children were not included in that Supreme Court ruling. Forgive my ignorance, but so they're basically they're not afforded those same rights now.
So no, that's not correct. The Supreme Court did not exclude children. In fact, some cases have come out recently have talked about how it's so critically important that children understand the Miranda rights because their mental capacity, their brain level, their brain development, they often can't understand them. So I think the issue is, according to the National Center on Exonerations, 91% of children waive their Miranda rights. And there's been testimony that children, especially under a certain age, don't even understand what it is when they're asked to waive rights. They think it's waving the hand. They don't understand what a waiver is. And so I forgot that part. So that's another part of the bill that also gives authority to the Court of Appeals to construct Miranda warnings that are age appropriate for children.
Okay, now there's a concern that I have, and I spoke to you about it offline, but just to speak about it on the floor for a moment, the concern I would have looking at this bill is that you've got an emergency situation. So there's a provision in here to say if there is what kind of emergency, like emergencies can be where a police officer can interrogate a person under the age of 18 without doing this?
The same as for everyone else, which is basically a public safety exception. There's a risk of threat to public safety or to an individual. There's something that's in action, and there's no alternative except to ask the person questions or the child questions. So that's already in law, and it's in the bill.
And I'm using an example that I've heard, but an officer comes into a playground area or an area where there's a lot of like teenagers, and they come in and there's a situation where there's clearly been some sort of violent act. They can detain the children and question them without having to go through these steps.
So nothing in the bill interferes with general investigations, general investigatory questions. There's a specific difference between investigation and routine questions as opposed to a custodial interrogation. Generally, if all of those children are there and being asked questions,
that's
no
not custodial. That's
right.
not a custodial interrogation. Okay, good. Okay, that's good to know. And then, okay, that's very helpful. I just that's fine. Thank you for your answer. Mr. President, we'll listen to maybe some more discussion on this bill. Obviously, I do think we want parents to know. Parental notification is actually really important. We actually were discussing parental notification in our committee day, in the Finance Committee. I think parental notification about things is really important. I also think that my friend that's the floor leader mentioned about we need children to better understand the Miranda rights, which I'm not saying I'm against. I'd like us to be sure we get children better understanding the proper way to conduct themselves so they don't have to be read their Miranda rights, but I think we all agree with that. I'll let it go at that, Mr. President, and see if there's any more questions. Thank you.
All right, question is on the 5 committee amendments. Any further discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery on the amendments.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield, please?
Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Senator. First, I want to thank you for explaining this bill in plain English for those of us in this body who are not attorneys. So appreciate that. I just had a question. On page 3, it talks about age-appropriate language, and on page 6, it talks about knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily. And I just wonder if you could speak to that related to a minor who has intellectual disabilities.
So the bill doesn't specifically carve out an exception for intellectual disabilities, although we know from a lot of the evidence that children that have those disabilities are even more susceptible to coercion. But so under the current law, under due process, you've got to have a knowing, voluntary, and intelligent waiver of the right. But if children can't understand the right, then they can't have a knowing, voluntary, and intelligent waiver. So the age-appropriate language that we hope to adopt would hopefully address those concerns.
So clarifying, if there is a minor who biologically is 17 years of age, but let's say might have an intellectual age of 8. What is age appropriate for that person? Because I can't imagine that the interrogator would be able to discern the intellectual age, and I doubt they carry around a card or something.
So it's an objective standard, and it's based on a totality of the circumstances, but I think that the question you have is addressed by the fact that once we require an attorney, the attorney is then able to better explain to the child, and under this bill, the attorney is mandatory, that there is an attorney that explains to the child's rights and what's going on and advises the child prior to the interrogation.
And presumably, if the attorney was able to be in touch with a parent or guardian, that attorney would be able to have the information of the level of abilities. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the information.
All right, on the amendments, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 5 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 53 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, let's go to layover calendar number 30. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 875, Senator Wallstreicher, Discrimination in Housing, Citizenship, Immigration Status, and Natural Origin. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question is on the 3 committee amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 875 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Let's go to the report. Let's go to Education, Health, Environmental Affairs. This is calendar number 32. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 467, Senator West, Business Regulation, Home Improvement Commission, Award Limits, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of us have heard horror stories about contractors who promise the world, take a third of the project money down and then disappear, or they work for a day and a half and then they disappear. We have in the state of Maryland a Home Improvement Commission which has for many years had a $20,000 maximum possible amount that can be awarded from the Home Improvement Guarantee Fund to a homeowner for acts and omissions of one contractor. This level of $20,000 has not been changed in many years. This bill simply raises it to $30,000. There's no committee amendments. Move the favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 467 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 654, Senator Klossmeyer, Veterans Affairs, Office of Communications and Public Affairs, Veterans Advocacy and Education Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 654 helps us better serve Maryland's courageous veterans. Sometimes folks don't know about all of the grants, programs, job training, and educational opportunities that are available. So as amended, this is basically going to rename the Outreach and Advocacy Program to be the Communication Outreach and Advocacy Program, and make sure that that information is provided. There are 2 amendments. One makes technical changes. The other renames the office. And we think that this, by working with the Maryland Higher Education Commission and other agencies, that we will better serve our veterans. So move the favorable report with 2 amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 654 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 711, Senator Vital, Health Occupations, Licensed Athletic Trainers, Dry Needling, Registration, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
This bill authorizes a licensed athletic trainer to perform dry needling if the athletic trainer is registered by the Maryland Board of Physicians. That board must issue a registration to perform dry needling to a licensed athletic trainer who meets specified requirements. A little background, this 26 other states, this is already allowed. We would be the 27th. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one is technical. The second amendment requires a licensed athletic trainer applicant to be approved by the Board of Physicians through a specialized task designation on an evaluation and treatment protocol instead of requiring a licensed athletic trainer to be registered. That second amendment brought the Board of Physicians on board favorable with this. I'd like to move for the 2 amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objections, the committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 711 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 978, Senator Edwards, Garrett County Memorial Hospital lease authorization and alterations to Board of Governors. Favorable with 2 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the senator from the lower shore as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 978 is an emergency bill. It authorizes the Garrett County Commissioners and the Board of Governors of the Garrett County Memorial Hospital to lease the Garrett County Memorial Hospital or any portion thereof and transfer assets incidental to the lease in accordance with terms determined by the County Commissioners and the Board of Governors. This bill also decreases from 9 to 3 the total number of members of the Garrett County Memorial Hospital Board if the County Commissioners and the Board of Governors lease the Garrett County Memorial Hospital. The bill also requires that the 3 members of the board be residents of Garrett County and be appointed by the County Commissioners. There are 2 technical amendments. One is a change in the function paragraph. The other technical is to conform the bill to the current updates to the Garrett County Code. So with these 2 amendments, I move favorable for Senate Bill 978.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the committee amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objections, the committee amendments are adopted. Question on the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 978 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. All right, let's move to budget and taxation. We'll start, well, do we have, let's see where we are. Let's do report number 14. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 247, Senator Hayes, State Department of Assessments and Taxation, Real Property Assessment and Appeals. Favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 247 requires the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, SDAT, to make public in plain language a description of various methodologies and criteria for evaluation and assessments, authorizes appeal authorities to consider certain criteria in evaluating an appeal. And lastly, the bill requires SDAT to notify the county and the municipality within 10 days of an appeal that reduces by more than 20% the value of commercial property and gives 90 days for the locality to file an appeal. There are 3 committee amendments. The first makes technical changes. The second strikes provisions that pertain to the 3-year reassessment cycle. And the third strikes an unconstitutional provision and adds the notification requirements for counties and municipalities as I already described. And I move adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? If not, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question on the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 247 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 310, Senator Elfrith, Small Minority and Women-Owned Businesses Account, Local State of Emergency, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors, the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, we've had a lot of discussions on this floor about the effects of a changing climate, particularly as it relates to our local waters and local small businesses, residents, et cetera. Unfortunately, Anne Arundel County, over the course of 18 months, experienced 2 tornadoes and a record, fourth record highest flood over the course of 18 months, creating a lot of devastation across the county. This bill is an attempt to provide much needed local relief when a local disaster strikes. So as amended, it would expand the eligible uses of the Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Account, lovingly known as SWMOBA, to include grants to businesses and nonprofit organizations in Anne Arundel County or the City of Annapolis when there is a locally declared state of emergency and when the Department of Commerce signs off. Eligible fund managers may provide financial assistance in the form of a grant or by converting a prior loan to a grant with a $50,000 limit on either form of assistance. Also as amended, the bill would establish a work group to study the establishment of a state disaster relief fund. This came to us at the request of all of our county's emergency managers. They want us to think about and recommend for next session ways to address this on the statewide level, since we are going to see the prevalence of storms and microstorms grow in the coming years. Mr. President, there are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical, and the second makes the bill applicable to Anne Arundel County and establishes the work group. I move adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the committee amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objections, the committee amendments are adopted. On the favorable report as amended, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 310 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 314, Senator Rosapep, Income Tax, Mechanical Installation Tax Credit, favorable with 1 amendment.
Do we want to special order this one? Majority Leader moves to special order the bill to the end of the calendar. Clerk will read the next bill. Any objections to the special order? Hearing none, bill is special order to the end of the calendar. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 463, Senator Feldman, Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, funding, formulas, alteration, WMATA Dedicated Funding Amendment Act of 2022, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're very welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Senate Bill 463.
Great job.
Senate Bill 463 modifies the formulas for which the state provides capital funding grants to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority each year. First, the bill requires that the base capital grant equal to at least the amount appropriated in 2022, which is $143 million. In addition, the bill repeals the statutory requirement that the base capital grant increase by 3% each year. Then, it's subject to certain contingency requirements that beginning in FY25, the dedicated capital funding grant, $167 million, increased by 3% each year. This increase is contingent on DC and Virginia enacting similar laws. We all remember talking about this a couple years ago. All this really does is there's two grants that fund this. One is the base grant at 143, another that we approved a couple years ago at 167. The 143 had a 3% escalator on it. All that's happening is it's shifting from that to the new grant at 167. That's all the bill does.
All right.
Move.
Senators move the favorable committee report. On the report, Chair recognizes the Senator from Prince George's. On the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chairman Neal, perhaps you or the Vice Chair can answer. The senators in Prince George's County were having some issues with the WMATA. Did we satisfy the issues that were voiced in our meetings?
Let's see if the chair will yield to the senator from Prince George's.
This bill does not address that issue, and they're not addressed in this bill at all.
Was
They're-
not addressed?
In this bill, no. I mean, it doesn't address those issues at all.
Well, that's unfortunate. I think that we need to have a discussion at some point. We'll bring it up at our next meeting.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, on the report, any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 463 is hereby... Is there an amendment? Oh, Senator has an amendment. Not quite ordered. Clerk will collect the amendment. Senator may explain the amendment.
So all this is a technical amendment that aligns dates up to conform with actual agreements that occurred with the various base funds and the new fund. Move the amendment.
All right, Chairman moves the amendment. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 463 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 487, Senator Griffith, Procurement, Minority Business Enterprises, revisions, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as amended, Senate Bill 487 implements the statutory recommendations of the Department of Legislative Services evaluation of our Minority Business Enterprise Program. It establishes the position of the MBE Ombudsman within the Governor's Office on Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Affairs. It expands accountability and transparency requirements for the program, and it codifies an existing set-aside program for small businesses while applying prompt payments to subcontractor requirements to all subcontractors, not just construction. There are 3 amendments the committee adopted. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes to the title. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions related to vendor past performance on MBE goals and substitutes a process to determine when vendors persistently fail to meet MBE contract goals. It incorporates reporting requirements by industry type, strikes the repeal of language regarding liquidated damages, streamlines the process for certification of small business, and clarifies the duties of the ombudsman. Okay, and amendment number 3 adds reporting requirements. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the 3 amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, the committee amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 487 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 567, Senator Elfreth, Property Tax, Agricultural Use Assessment, Improvements, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we spent a lot of time and energy over the last few years to ensure that our farms can remain farms, that they can diversify their revenue and keep that land as agricultural land. In doing so, we've allowed for pumpkin patches, farm breweries, wineries, creameries, things like that. Unfortunately, SSTAT over the last year has gone to a number of these agricultural establishments and reassessed those buildings as commercial. Now, in the committee's view, that is the role of the General Assembly to decide that. And so what we did with this bill, Senate Bill 567, is make sure that we are clear in what should be assessed as agricultural land when that building is in fact on a working farm and meets certain criteria. So the bill as amended requires that an improvement located on land that qualifies for an agricultural use assessment must be assessed as agricultural property if the improvements are used for the following: the manufacture, packaging, storage, promotion, or sale of a value-added agricultural product, including dairy product that is derived from ingredients produced on the agricultural land or associated agricultural land, specified agricultural alcohol production, specified agritourism, roadside stands, and other agricultural activity permissible under local zoning. And that's a key piece of this, permissible under local zoning. So we are still ensuring that our counties are making these zoning decisions. Mr. President, there are two committee amendments. The first is technical, and the second defines an accessory use on an actively used farm and states that facility rentals with seating capacity of greater than 200 and any use established by local zoning does not meet the definition and requires that SDAT to reassess certain property. And the amendments also make this an emergency bill so we can handle the businesses that were already assessed. I think this bill and the amendments strike a great balance here, and I'd like to thank all the stakeholders for coming together. And with that, I move the two committee amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 567 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. We have a special order. If we could call up that special order. On the same calendar that we had to.
Senate Bill 314, income tax, mechanical installation tax credit, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be back. I appreciate your bringing the bill back. This bill is a modest addition to our climate change efforts and a way to help business save energy. We tend to think of insulation related to homes. They have problems. This is about industrial and commercial property. They lose a lot of energy. And so this creates a tax credit for folks who invest in insulating their mechanical equipment. The committee amendment caps the credit at $1 million a year and sets a 5-year sunset. I move the amendment and the report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Now on the amended report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 314 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, let's see. We've got more budget and tax. This is calendar 17. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 251, Senator Hayes, income tax subtraction modification for centenarians, favorable with two amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Frederick City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 251 creates a subtraction modification against the state income tax for an individual that's at least 100 years old. The maximum value of the subtraction modification is equal to $50,000 of the income received by the individual. There's a committee amendment which raises the subtraction modification to $100,000. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. As the remarks suggested, it's setting a new goal here. Aspiration, right? All right. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two amendments are, committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 251 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 474, Senator Edwards, Economic Development, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and Fund Establishment, favorable with three amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Western Maryland as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senate. Senate Bill 474 establishes the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Program Board and Fund. The purpose of the fund is to provide grants and loans for capital infrastructure projects and business development projects that improve economic conditions in the region. The member county or local entity within member county may apply for funding as specified in the bill. As amended for fiscal year 2024-2025, the governor must annually appropriate at least $20 million in state operating or capital budget to the fund. There are three amendments. First, adds a sponsor. The second reduces the number of years of required funding from 5 to 2, along with some corrective wording. The third alters the sunset of the bill. Move adoption of the amendments and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 474 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 574, Senator Klossmeyer, Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Fund, Annual Funding and Extension, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 574, as amended, requires that beginning in fiscal 2024, at least $500,000 must be distributed annually from the Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Fund to the nonprofit entities selected by the Secretary of Health to establish, maintain, and operate a donor registry. The bill also extends the termination date for the mandated distribution by 4 years. The bill takes effect July 1st, 2022, and terminates September 30th, 2027. There are 2 amendments. Amendment 1 makes technical changes, and Amendment number 2 requires an appropriation to the fund as necessary to meet the required distributions. I move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. On the favorable committee report as amended, any discussion? Any objections? If not, the favorable report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 574 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 644, Senator Salling, State Procurement Preferences, Historically Underutilized Business Zone Businesses, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Senator from District 6 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 644, as amended, requires the Department of General Services, in consultation with the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women Businesses Affairs, to study the feasibility impacts of establishing a state procurement percentage for businesses located in historic underutilized business zones. There was 2 amendments. I move favorable to the committee report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 644 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 647, Senator Young, Frederick County, Electronic Tip Jar Machines, Authorization and Regulation, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Frederick City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 647 authorizes a person authorized to operate a tip jar in Frederick County to operate an electronic tip jar. If the person obtains a gaming permit for each electronic tip jar in the county, the Frederick County Commissioners can adopt regulations for the operation of the electronic tip jars in Frederick County. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 647 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 679, Cecil County Senators, Fair Hill Improvement Fund, Special Event Area and Operations, favorable with 1 amendment.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. You may all remember, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, last couple of years, we've been looking at this facility in Cecil County and helping provide some funding for it. At Fair Hill, what happens is what's known as a 5-star event, and it's a horse event, dressage, show jumping. It's actually a really big deal internationally that we have it here in Maryland. What all this bill does is authorizes the governor to include an appropriation of $1.8 million for the Fair Hill Improvement Fund. There's 1 committee amendment. The amendment authorizes instead of requires the governor to include the appropriation in the budget each year. So this came in as a mandate. We looked at it. We decided that we let the next governor, whoever they may be, and the legislature as we move into our new structure next year to review it and put a little more time into figuring out exactly what this facility needs over the course of time. So I'll move the bill, move adoption of the committee report and the amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 679 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 723, Senator King, Sales and Use Tax, Digital Product Definition, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 723 alters the definition of a digital product for purposes of state sales and use tax. The bill takes effect July 1, 2022. The bill clarifies that the sales tax does not apply to two types of products. Number one is digital products where the purchaser holds an ownership interest in the product. And number two, computer software used for commercial purposes in an enterprise computer system. This bill clarifies these two items are not subject to the sales tax and is consistent with the legislation we passed last year. There is no fiscal impact, no committee amendments, and I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from Anne Arundel on the report.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read this. Can I just special order this for one day?
Check with the floor leader. Oh.
Sure.
No objections on the special order. Any objections from other members? If not, the bill and the amendments will be special. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 792, Senator Gazzoni, Horse Racing, Satellite Simulcast, Betting Facilities and Permit Holders, Alterations, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Senate Bill 792 is kind of a cleanup bill. Off-track betting, of course, has been around for a long time in the state, but given all the changes in casinos and sports wagering, we really haven't updated the laws that relate to that, relate to off-track betting and the interaction between the two or the three different kinds of wagering. So Senate Bill 792 specifies that certain local zoning approval is not required to use a facility for off-track betting if the facility is zoned for operation for a video lottery facility, sports wagering facility, or an electronic bingo facility. So in other words, the only reason that you wouldn't need the local zoning to add just off-track betting is because there's already a significant gaming facility already there. The bill authorizes the Maryland Racing Commission to waive review of an applicant for off-track betting permit if the permit is a video lottery or sports wagering licensee. Again, they've already gone through the significant process for review to get their license. This would just add to that. The bill also, for OTBs located at a casino or a sports betting facility, Senate Bill 792 authorizes employees to be able to accept both pari-mutuel and sports bets, which under current law is not permitted. And then finally, it also allows for, at an OTB, where there are kiosks. It used to be the kiosks had to be completely separate. In other words, you could only do horse race betting at one, and then you did another one for sports betting. The way technology is, they can integrate the machines, and that's what we're allowing it to do. And I move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 792 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 799, Senator Gazzoni, Community College Tuition and Residency Waivers Funding, favorable with two amendments.
799, 799. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor.
Okay, so over the last couple of years, I've actually had this bill in and another bill to increase the CADE formula. My belief is that we should be putting more resources into the community colleges. And I've gone round and round with this, and the committee finally decided that we would take this route, at least as a beginning step. So as a state, we have basically created unfunded mandates to our community college for a lot of good stuff. We waive tuition for foster care recipients, unaccompanied homeless youth, senior citizens, people with disabilities, all those kinds of things. We've said, community colleges, you need to do these things, but we don't provide any funds for it. All this bill does is provide funds for it in the amount of $10 million. There are two committee amendments. The first is technical and adds co-sponsors. The second limits the funding to 3 years and adds a reporting requirement. Move adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The two committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 799 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 803, Senator Gazzone, Correctional Services, Drinking Driver Monitor Program, Position Requirement, favorable.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors. The floor leader.
Okay, this is kind of an interesting situation. We have been asking for a number of years, I think over 3 years now, for the Department of Management and Budget to consider adding the Monitor 3 employee position classification in order to help with retention. Right now there is a Monitor 1, a Monitor 2. These are all under parole and probation, but it's in the specified area of drinking driving monitors. So currently in parole and probation, there are multiple levels, 1, 2, 3, but they don't coincide for the drinking and driving program. We've gone through the process of asking through joint committee reports and budget language for 3 years. It hasn't happened, and so we finally decided as a committee that we were going to go ahead and request that it actually happens through legislation. So it requires the Division of Parole and Probation within the Department of Public Safety to establish a Monitor 3 employee position classification with the Drinking Driving Monitor Program. The department must provide the position with a salary of at least grade 13, step 1, in the standard pay plan established by the Secretary of Management and Budget. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 803 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 838, Senator Young, Transportation, Elderly and Handicapped Transportation Service, County Funding, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsors. The floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 838 establishes minimum funding requirements for the Maryland Department of Transportation for elderly and handicapped transportation service in each county in Baltimore City. There's one committee amendment, and the one committee amendment requires an annual report on the services being provided and the estimated need for these types of services in the state. Move adoption of the committee report.
The floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the favorable report is amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 838 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 885, Senator Griffith, Maryland Technology Development Corporation, Maryland Equity Investment Fund established, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the capital city as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, in 2016, this body allowed for certain state retirement pension funding to be used to invest in certain TEDCO funds. It hasn't, frankly, worked out the way it was intended, and so this is very much a cleanup of that policy. Senate Bill 885 establishes the Maryland Equity Investment Fund in the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, otherwise known as TEDCO. The purpose of the fund is to allow unappropriated general fund surplus to be invested in the state The goal being to increase private equity and venture capital in the state and the interest earnings and investment returns realized to the benefit of the participants within our state retirement and pension system. For fiscal year 24, the governor must include an appropriation to the Maryland Equity Investment Fund equal to 10% of the unappropriated general fund surplus in excess of $10 million from the second prior fiscal year up to a maximum of $10 million. That's a little complicated. This is not new money. This is money that already existed. We're just reallocating it. There's a committee amendment to clarify the types of businesses that TEDCO may invest in and makes technical corrections. Mr. President, I move the one committee amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment, the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee amendment, or the one committee amendment is adopted. Now on the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 885 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. One more out of budget and tax. I know we're getting tired, but we're almost there. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. Let's go to calendar 18. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 929, Senator Gazzoni, admissions and amusement tax, sports wagering, prohibition, favorable.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's pretty simple. When we did sports wagering last year, we neglected to deal with the possibility of a local government trying to tax the proceeds of sports wagering. We had no intention of them having that ability. All this does is say you don't. I move move adoption of committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 929 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, let's go to judicial proceedings. Judicial proceedings, we've got calendar number 19. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 38, Senator Kramer, Public Safety, Fire and Rescue, Veterinary Care of Retired Fire and Rescue Canines, favorable with one amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill requires a state or local fire and rescue entity that removes from duty a dog used in fire and rescue work to reimburse an individual who takes possession of the dog for reasonable and necessary veterinary treatment provided to the dog. The bill allows fire and rescue entities to accept donations to meet the bill's requirements and also to establish a separate fund. There's one committee amendment which is technical. There was no opposition. There's no fiscal note. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. We know who's coming on Friday. Sparky the fire dog. So, all right, on the amendment, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The one committee amendment is adopted. Now on the amended report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 38 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 581, Senator Bailey, Public Safety, Law Enforcement Agencies, Positive Community Feedback, favorable with three amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator, bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. As amended, this bill requires the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission to develop a uniform citizens' positive community feedback process to be adopted and followed by each law enforcement agency. The process must be simple and posted on their website and on the website of each law enforcement agency that maintains a website. Each law enforcement agency must maintain a record of positive community feedback for all law enforcement officers within the agency. There were three amendments. First one was technical. Second one specifies disclosure of positive community feedback under the Maryland Public Information Act. And the third corrects a drafting error. This passed the committee unanimously. I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report. The amendments.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the three committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the three committee amendments are adopted. On the amended report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 581 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 750, Senator McCray, Baltimore City, Vehicle Laws Towing, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 750 amends the Baltimore City Charter to authorize the city to tow vehicles blocking access to driveways, alleys, transit lanes, or parking facilities. It was a unanimous vote, and Mr. President, I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 750 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 820, Senator Lamb, Child Abuse and Neglect, Investigations, Timeliness, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 820, as amended, requires DHS to implement policies to ensure that if a local Department of Social Services or law enforcement agency fails to see a child regarding suspected child abuse or neglect within the time frame required in statute, the reason for the delay is documented and supervisors are notified. DHS is required to prepare a report identifying investigations or reports regarding suspected child abuse and neglect that are not completed within the time frames required in statute. Additionally, DHS is required to assess studies and methodologies related to analyzing workloads in child welfare systems, submit a report on best practices, and submit a report on the child welfare workload assessment development by DHS. And the bill sunsets in 5 years. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one's technical. The second one authorizes a licensed clinical professional counselor to complete a certain initial investigation of child abuse or neglect and alters the reports required under the bill and sunsets the entire bill in 5 years. Wonder if I could lay this over for another technical amendment?
All right, the senator has moved the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report, and then has made a motion to lay the bill over. The motion is in order, and the bill and the amendments will lie over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 878, Senator Wallstreicher, Maryland Trust Act, Trustee Liability, released by interested parties, favorable.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill modifies procedures under the Maryland Trust Act that a trustee may elect to follow upon the termination of a trust or the trustee's removal or resignation to seek the trustee's release from liability for the administration of the trust. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 878 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we've got, we were waiting on an amendment for this one. This is special order number 47. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 394, the President, Statewide Targeted Overdose Prevention Stop Act of 2022. Questions on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, it looks like we may have an amendment. Let's do the committee amendments. Any discussion on the amendments? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion on the report? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Senator from the 34th District has an amendment. We are loading up that amendment. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thanks, President. Colleagues, this amendment simply conforms the Senate bill to what has already passed in the House. I believe it's a friendly amendment. I move the friendly amendment. Thank you.
All right, check with the floor leader.
Yes, friendly amendment.
All right, friendly amendment. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 394 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. We've got another special order. This is number 48. There's a lot of special orders already. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 354, Senator Elfrith, Bay Restoration Fund, Intended Use Plans, and Privately Owned Wastewater Facilities. Bill is on third reading for final passage.
All right, Senators, this bill is on third reading for final passage. Chair recognizes the floor leader on it.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move that we return Senate Bill 354 to second reader for purpose of amendment.
Senators move that we reconsider the vote by which the bill moved to third reading. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, the motion carries. Senate Bill 354 is now before the body on second reader and open to amendment. Are there any?
Amendment.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st District has an amendment, which we will load up. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senate, simple way of saying what the amendment is sort of a grandfather clause. We want to protect some people who are already in the process, that they don't get bypassed with this, and we see this as a friendly amendment.
Let's check with the senators move the amendment. Floor leader.
Mr. President, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs supports grandparents, and we think this is a very friendly amendment.
All right. Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 354 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. We have a report from the Committee on Executive Nominations. This is number 6. Clerk, read the report.
The Senate Executive Nominations Committee Report Number 6 reports favorably on the gubernatorial and non-gubernatorial appointments and recommends the Senate of Maryland advise and consent to these appointments. The report should be on the floor system.
All right. Question is on report number 6. Let's check with the chair of the Executive Nominations Committee.
Yeah, I had to stop and think which report we were doing. I move that we accept the report from the Senate Executive Nominations Committee in open session and special order it until Tuesday.
All right. Senators move that we accept the report in open session and special order until the appropriate time on Tuesday. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senators, please make a look through that list. It's got a long list. If there's any excuses or votes separating, we'll take it up on Tuesday. All right, we got one more piece of business. I think this is our first one of the year. This is a message from the House of Delegates. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 158, Senator Kagan, Election Law, Uniform Statewide Voting Systems, Cost Sharing. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a concurrence motion. This is Senate Bill 158. It codifies an uncodified provision of Chapter 564 of 2001, where it talked about the county splitting the state cost for election equipment in a 50-50 split. It will put that in codified language. There are a couple of amendments. First one makes technical changes. The second one says that for the upcoming election, the number of voting places on election day should remain the same or could be greater, but we want to ensure that we don't have these very large voting centers on election day, which might reduce people's ability to vote. And finally, it strikes a previous House amendment that would have prohibited postponement of the 2022 statewide primary election to after a specified date. Obviously, that's a non-issue now since the court has already acted. Mr. President, I would move that the Senate concur with these amendments on Senate Bill 158.
All right, the chairman moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion on the senator's motion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The Senate concurs with the House amendments. Senate Bill 158 is now again before the Senate on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the committee has 2 minutes to explain her vote.
Not even needing 2 minutes. I'm just wondering, it doesn't seem to say emergency bill up there, and I just wonder if that's an error. This is an emergency bill.
It is an emergency bill. Yes, thank you, Senator. It is an emergency bill. I think it's because we accepted the House amendments. All right. Any further explanations of votes? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 158, having received constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, Senators, the desk is clear. The desk is clear. That is a lot of work. We've got a big day tomorrow again, so probably going to have it doubled up. We'll see where we are. We also should have a nice no relation Senator Ferguson joining us tomorrow for St. Patrick's Day, little musical interlude. Any committee announcements before tomorrow morning? Delegation announcements? Special announcements? General announcements? All right. If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Thursday, March 17th at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. tomorrow. Stay safe, drive safely. See you tomorrow morning.